What was your audition like? Did you even know you were auditioning for Miss Marvel, or was it just teenage boy in Disney show?
Yeah, so I knew it was a Disney Plus Marvel show. I knew they were looking for South Asian actors, so it took like just a little bit of research to kind of figure out that I was auditioning for Miss Marvel. And then after diving into the comics, I had a feeling that it was for Kareem as well. But I was actually the first person cast in the show, which was really cool. I wasn't even sure which character I was going to play at first. I was just attached to Miss Marvel as a whole. So luckily it all worked out because I wanted to play Kareem. I wanted to, learn a new dialect and bring my martial arts to the show. I felt like, no one else could play Kareem but me.
What was the timeline like of you? Like you get booked, but you don't know who you're playing, and then actually finding out. Like, was it like a long process, or was it just maybe a couple months?
Originally, when I had auditioned, it took about 3 months for them to get back to me. I got a call from Seraphin. I was visiting my family in Colorado, and they said that they wanted me to test. The next day, my agent calls and tells me, "Oh, well, they want you to speak Urdu, and they want you to also come with a Pakistani accent." So I was like, okay, I think I can do that. I did it a bit as a kid, like sort of with my grandma or with my cousins or with my dad, more as a joke, but I had never done it seriously, and also with, stakes as high as they were. So I went back in, and then within a few days, they told me that I was attached to the show. And then they had a month to basically tell me which character I was going to play. So it was a long process, but it was actually a quite pleasant one.
I mean, for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's only so many people in the world that can say, hey, I'm in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and I'm playing a superhero. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. What was your history with the Marvel world before booking this? Were you a big comic book fan, or was this kind of like?
I'm not a huge comic book fan, but I was a fan of some of the early Marvel movies. Iron Man 1, grew up on Iron Man 1 and the Amazing Spider-Mans, and Wolverine. I loved Logan, but I wouldn't say I'm as big of a comic book fan as Iman would be, or Laurel. But I've definitely learned a lot more since I've gotten a part of the MCU.
I hear you. When did you do any research for Red Dagger? I know he is kind of a recent character in the comic book universe, but did you do any research? And if so, what aspects of his character did you really love getting into?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're right in saying that he is kind of a new character. There's not like loads and loads of information on Kareem. So I think we were kind of starting with a clean slate, and I think the characters that we create in the show are really gonna kind of translate to the comics now. So I feel like in a way we're kind of starting these characters from scratch. Although they do have, some character traits like Kareem, he's very, very confident. He reps his city really hard. He's super loyal. Those were all things that I sort of took from the comics and implemented them into the character work. But really, we were starting from the beginning. It felt like, it's not like Spider-Man where there's, hundreds of issues of comic books and Easter eggs. And, there was nothing for us to really go off of, just, very simple character traits, which I think was good because it gave us a lot of creative freedom to make what we wanted to make.
I know filming this show during a pandemic probably wasn't that easy. So how did you deal with that as an actor? I mean, conveniently you play a character who is always wearing a mask. So but yeah. But in general, like, what was the experience of having to film a show during these circumstances?
I mean, it wasn't too bad. We had to test every single day on set. So health and safety were always really on us. But yeah, I was thankful to have like a really practical costume, so I didn't have to walk around with an N95 on my face all the time. I could just kind of walk around as Kareem. And most of the time when he's in his Red Dagger outfit, he keeps his mask up anyway. So yeah, it was pretty nice to be able to just use my costume.
Well, he looks great. I looked at because I looked up some images from the comics and so on. I was like, oh, it's of course very accurate, but it's also very so like streetwise, it kind of like blends in, like it doesn't stick out too much, like like Spider-Man costume.
We modernized his costume a bit, I think, with the show. In the comics, his scarf is much longer and it drapes much more. But we went with something a bit more, traditional. Something is a bit more fluid. so that, you know, in the midst of our action scenes, I wouldn't be fiddling with my mask.
How many variations did that costume go through? Like, was this like kind of like the first initial design, or was there like how
Yeah,
many like?
there was a couple. So initially, when I had first tried on the costume, there was no texture in the vest or the shirt. It was just colors. And then Arjun, our amazing costume designer, was showing me the materials that he was going to use. We tried a few different masks on. Some were a bit longer, like actual real scarves. And then some were just like bandana form, like the one that we ended up going with. But I was glad that we ended up going with that because I think the long scarf plus Thailand heat and in the fight scenes and running around and all that would have made it a bit difficult. It's also terrible for continuity. A scarf, so bad for continuity because it could be over one shoulder 1 second, the other shoulder the next. You know, just, I think it's much better we went with the bandana style.
Yeah, I mean you're right. Because I know there's definitely fans of any genre that really keep like close details on like,
Yeah.
in scene 1 and scene 13, suddenly it's a little bit taller, it's a little bit shorter. So
Exactly.
I hear you on that. I'm sure you've seen in one way or another how much this show means to people, especially in the South Asian community and people who come from Muslim heritage, as they they get to see themselves on screen, which I mean as a Persian man, brown people in general, we're slowly starting to get there, seeing more of us on screen. So I wanted to ask you, do you remember the first time you saw yourself on screen that you felt like, oh my God, I'm being represented, whether it was in a TV show or in a movie?
I mean, not until Miss Marvel. I started acting when I was 5, and I had never played something authentic to my heritage up until now, which is pretty crazy. I always like played Hispanic or Persian or Armenian. I played Arab. Yeah, but I'd never actually been able to play a Pakistani character. Yeah, not until this show, really, to be honest.
Well, bless the Lord that we have a show like Miss Marvel, and hopefully that will just pave the way for more. Because we know we've come a long way, but we still need to see more of us, of course, for sure.
Absolutely.
And these two episodes really set up Kareem and Kamala's relationship, friendship, in a very big, fun, and Marvel way. And so I was wondering, could you talk about working with Iman, and what do you hope to see from the dynamic in the future, whether it is maybe in a season 2 of this show or maybe in another Marvel project?
Yeah. I mean, Iman is one of my best friends. Still to this day, we're very close. We live next to each other in Thailand. We became such good friends throughout this all that, like, you sometimes forget that we're working on a television show together, and that eventually the show will come out and people will have opinions on us and they'll perceive us together and separately. And I never really took that into account just because, we're like a big family, as cliche as it sounds. Our cast is very, very close. But working with her was incredible. I was so like surprised by her seasoning. I was just so surprised how like at home she was on set for having, just began her career. Pretty incredible. In terms of the characters, I really have no preference. I think Kareem is a great ally for Kamala, and I think he will continue to be. And I hope for more team ups in the future, like Dobby got.
Well, speaking of team ups and and other dynamics, even though it was short lived, you got to work with Faron as the lead. Hopefully, I'm saying his names correctly. But can you talk about getting to work with him? And again, someone that it's a tight relationship, but it's also so like short lived. So can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, working with Farhan was amazing. Like such a down to earth guy. Didn't talk about work too much while we were on set. We just talked about like, personal hobbies that we have. He's big into skydiving. I'm big into camping. So, I was telling him about my van. He was telling me about his, skydiving excursions. We spent a total of probably 3 weeks or so on set together. So we became good friends. But it was amazing to be in his presence. Lots of respect there. And he gave me, bits and pieces of advice that, I'll keep with me for a long time. Yeah, he was great to work with. Super, super humble, nice guy.
Well, whether we see it on screen or not, how does Kareem deal with his death now going forward? Because everything was episode 4 or 5 was so intense and everything went by so quickly that
Yeah.
there wasn't really a moment for your character to really process everything. So where does he go from here?
Yeah, it's true. I think that he's going to have to take on a lot more responsibility for the Red Daggers now. He says that in the goodbye, I have to go back and tell everyone what happened. So he's kind of a bearer of bad news, but I also think it will probably garner him somewhat of a promotion within the society. Felt like he was Waleed's right-hand man, so he'll probably take over some of the decision-making for Waleed. But I think you're right in saying that he didn't really have time to process it. And also, I think this is like what they really live for, and I think deep down Kareem understands that Waleed would not have wanted to go any other way. He fought to the very end. It was a very honorable death. And I think for that reason, there's a bit of honor in the way that he went.
Am I right to say that Kareem and the people he grew up with, like they kind of had to grow up very fast? They didn't really get to have a childhood. Is that kind of right to assume?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why initially Kareem is so sort of drawn to Kamala, because I'm not 100% sure that Kareem has ever really even had a best friend, because he lives this secret life. And you even see it on Clifton Beach, although he has these friends, they don't know that he's Red Dagger. They don't know what he does during the day. They really don't know anything about him. So there's a lot of trust initially built between Kamala and Kareem. And I think that's why he's so intrigued by her, is because he hasn't had a lot of time to like just be with a girl or learn about a girl. I found that a very fun dynamic to play with, like between, when Kareem is like very business and when he's like being Kareem and just having fun.
From watching these 2 episodes, was there anything that you shot that didn't make it into these episodes that maybe got left as deleted scenes?
Yeah, a bunch of stuff. A lot of stuff on Clifton Beach. We had a ton of lightning delays that day. So we had about 25% of the time that we should have had to shoot all of Clifton Beach. But yeah, there was a whole festival at Clifton Beach that didn't end up making it into the cut. There's a scene with Waleed, Kamala, and I that didn't make it into the cut. And then Dobie Ghat actually was all done during reshoots. So we had shot something completely different in Thailand as the fight in 4. But creatively, it didn't make a lot of sense. So coming back for reshoots, we wanted to redo it.
Okay. Well, I know you talked about this in other interviews about working with a dialect coach and getting that Pakistani accent. Can you talk a bit more about that process? Because I've always been fascinated when actors had to learn how to do accents of other ethnicities and so on.
Difficult, like it's already difficult to get down the sounds of a certain dialect, but it's even more difficult to make it like sound real, as well as making it like seem second nature, like you're not thinking about it. And it took some time. I think even when we began shooting, by the time we ended shooting, I had improved so much. And I had an amazing dialect coach, an amazing culture coach. And that was also something that really drew me to Kareem, because it's a huge challenge. I felt like they really put a lot of trust in me to hire me because I'm American, so to go in there and have to appear as a kid from Karachi, sound like a kid from Karachi, act like a kid from Karachi. It takes a lot of faith in me.
Do you when you're not doing the show, when you're not doing the character, do you still every once in a while kind of just rehearse that act just to kind of keep it in case Kevin Feige calls and says, hey, you need to come back? And
absolutely. Yeah. Mostly when I'm in the shower, actually. It's really funny. Whenever I'm in the shower, I feel like my innermost thoughts come out. So a lot of times I'll get stuck in the accent. But now I have a pretty solid lock on it. So come a time when Kareem is back around, it shouldn't be a problem.
Well, on that note, because episode 5, like you said, it kind of did wrap up things for him, but what are chances that we might see you in the finale? Or is that not okay? Will Marvel just say, nope, you can't talk about that?
I definitely can't talk about that. but Kareem is a great ally to Kamala, and really a great ally to every hero in the MCU. So you'll definitely see more of Kareem.
Well, speaking on that, given that how many heroes there are in the MCU, do you have like a wish list of characters that you hope to interact with, whether it's on future Disney Plus shows or in other movies?
I think like Red Dagger and Deadpool would be really good.
That would be kind of hilarious.
I think there would just be a lot there for us to work with. And then selfishly, I'd love a meetup with Moon Knight, just because Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, no, that's just it. Like, just because Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, exactly.
It speaks for itself. I know many are hoping for season 2 of the show. If that were to happen, do you see yourself coming back? Has there been any talks about more Miss Marvel?
Yeah, if there is a season 2, I will be back.
Oh, awesome! Looking forward to it, because I definitely want to see Kareem in Kamal's world, and kind of in New Jersey. Kind of like, I really want to see how he would do with someone like Bruno.
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if we're going to stay true to comics or not. But if we do stay true to comics, then he'll end up in Jersey. And I don't think it made it into the episode, but we had a couple of lines teasing Kareem ending up in Jersey, but it's really up in the air. We aren't too sure.
Oh man, I definitely want to see those scenes then, because I was hoping there would be something like this can't be it. There has to be a little bit more, it can't already be over. So
we teased Jersey, but then we ended up reshooting that scene, and the lines changed a bit. So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, but before I let you go, outside of future MCU adventures, regardless where they might be, what is coming up for you next? Do you have any TV shows, any movies you're working on right now?
I mean, right now I'm just home, kind of relaxing, auditioning a bit. There's some stuff in the works, but nothing to report right now, but very soon.
All right. Well, I look forward to see where you go next and to see you back as Red Dagger. But thank you so much for your time today. I look forward for fans to read and see this interview, and hopefully you get that Deadpool crossover. You guys got, because
hell yeah,
just seeing him with kids is just, teenagers is just hilarious. Because
I think Red Dagger Deadpool would be a really interesting duo.
Well, Kevin Feige, if he's watching, hopefully he'll make it happen.
Oh, do it, Mr. Feige.